The first time I saw him, I was juggling apples at the bustling marketplace in Lviv, desperately trying not to drop my groceries. Then, there he was, a soldier with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through the chaos. He looked out of place among the stalls and the noise, confident and calm. Our eyes met, and it was like a spark in a powder keg. Intrigued and curious, I couldn't shake him from my mind. A few days later, I passed the same market, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. But there he was again, this time approaching me with a bouquet of wildflowers. Wildflowers, for crying out loud. His charming smile made my heart do somersaults. "For you," he said simply. "Who does that these days?" We exchanged a few words, and I found out he was stationed in the city temporarily. Great, just my luck. By the end of the week, I found myself at my usual spot in a local cafe, tapping away at my laptop. To my surprise, Alexander, the soldier with the flowers, showed up. He asked if he could join me, and before I knew it, we were deep in conversation about everything from literature to our favorite childhood memories. His intelligence and wit were intoxicating. How did a soldier end up knowing so much about Dostoevsky? Our coffee meetings became a regular thing, and soon we were taking evening walks in the city park. There's something about a sunset that makes secrets spill out. Alexander brought his guitar one evening and played a song he loved. He told me about his love for music, and I couldn't help but fall a little more for him each time. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he confessed his growing feelings for me. I was torn, knowing how risky this was. Yet, how could I deny my own feelings? The connection between us was undeniable, but we were treading on dangerous ground. We began stealing moments whenever possible, sneaking away to secluded spots. The thrill of our secret was both exhilarating and terrifying. We shared passionate kisses and whispers of a future that seemed like a dream. But reality has a way of catching up. One night, we were leaving one of our hidden spots when we ran into one of Alexander's comrades. My heart almost stopped. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, but his friend just nodded and walked away, silently agreeing to keep our secret. Still, the encounter was a stark reminder of the precariousness of our situation. We couldn't keep this up without someone getting hurt. Every meeting with Alexander was a mix of joy and fear. I started to notice the little things. The way he looked over his shoulder, the sudden pauses in our conversation when he thought he heard something. It was a constant game of cat and mouse, with the stakes getting higher each day. In my more sarcastic moments, I'd think about how my life had turned into some sort of tragic romance novel, only without the guaranteed happy ending. Each day brought new challenges, but I couldn't walk away. The pull was too strong, and I was already in too deep. As we navigated this treacherous path, I found myself questioning everything. Was it worth the risk? Could we ever have a future together? The uncertainty was maddening, but the moments of stolen happiness made it all worthwhile. We found sanctuary in a dilapidated farmhouse on the outskirts of town, where creaky floors and an overgrown garden hid us from prying eyes. This place, with its eerie silence and old-world charm, became our haven. Here, Alexander and I could drop our guards, away from the world's judgment. One evening, as the wind howled outside and the floorboards creaked under our weight, Alexander opened up. He told me about the battlefield, about the horrors he had seen and the friends he had lost. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the pain. I listened, my heart breaking with each story. How could someone so strong and composed carry such heavy scars? We spent more time at the farmhouse, sharing our vulnerabilities. It was a strange comfort to lay bare our wounds in this forgotten place. The walls witnessed our whispered confessions, our stolen kisses, and our silent tears. The bond between us grew stronger, forged in the fires of our shared pain. Meanwhile, Alexander's unit started assisting the locals. They distributed food and medical supplies, trying to bring some semblance of normalcy to our war-torn world. I joined them, side by side with Alexander, working tirelessly. The locals began to see us as a unit, complicating our already fragile secret. How long before someone put two and two together? One night, Alexander came to me with grim news. His unit was assigned a dangerous mission to intercept enemy communications. The night before he left, we spent hours holding each other, afraid it might be our last time together. The dread was suffocating. What if this was it? What if he didn't come back? I prayed for his safe return, every fiber of my being consumed with fear. While Alexander was away, time crawled. Sleep evaded me, and food tasted like ash. Each day felt like an eternity. I volunteered at the local hospital, trying to keep busy, but the fear gnawed at my heart constantly. Every sound, every shadow, every whisper of the wind set my nerves on edge. The waiting was torture. Finally, after what felt like ages, Alexander returned. He was weary, worn down by the mission, but he was alive. Seeing him safe brought tears to my eyes. I threw myself into his arms, our reunion a mix of relief and passion. We held each other tightly, wordlessly promising never to let go. In the aftermath of the mission, as we lay together in the farmhouse, Alexander made a promise. He told me that once the war was over, we would leave together and start anew. This promise became my beacon of hope, a light guiding me through the darkest days. We clung to this dream, believing that somehow, someway, we would make it out together. Life continued its chaotic march, but our bond was our anchor. Every secret rendezvous at the farmhouse, every shared task with the locals, every whispered confession strengthened our resolve. The war raged on, but so did our love, defying the odds, daring to hope for a future that seemed just out of reach. You know things are going south when whispers start sounding like screams. Alexander's frequent absences had begun to arouse suspicion among his comrades. Whispers of his secretive behavior spread like wildfire through the ranks, putting us both at risk. It was like living on a knife's edge. One wrong move, and everything could crumble. We had to be more careful. Our meetings became less frequent, our locations safer, or so we hoped. One evening, sneaking out to meet Alexander, I nearly got caught by a patrol. Heart pounding, I ducked into an alleyway, barely daring to breathe as the soldiers passed by. Too close, way too close. This close call was a harsh reminder of the increasing danger of our affair. We were playing with fire, and the flames were getting higher. Then came the rumors of a spy within the ranks. Paranoia gripped the unit tighter than a vice. Everyone was under suspicion, and the air was thick with distrust. Alexander and I had to be even more cautious, knowing that any slip could lead to severe consequences. It was like walking through a minefield, every step calculated, every breath measured. The inevitable happened. Alexander's commanding officer called him in for questioning about his whereabouts. He managed to deflect the suspicions, but the experience left him shaken. When he warned me that we needed to be more discreet, I could see the fear in his eyes. We were running out of time, and the walls were closing in. To maintain our connection, we got creative, exchanging coded messages hidden in plain sight, inside books, beneath flower pots, through trusted locals. It was like a game of espionage, but the stakes were painfully real. Each message was a lifeline, a thread keeping us connected in the dark. One day, while I was at home, Alexander showed up unexpectedly. He had managed to get a brief leave and wanted to spend every moment with me. We stayed indoors, savoring our stolen time together, fully aware of how fleeting it might be. His presence was a balm to my anxiety, even as I felt the weight of impending doom. Then, the letter arrived. A message from my family in another city, urging me to leave the war zone. They had heard about the increasing danger and wanted me to be safe. Torn between my family's concern and my love for Alexander, I felt a growing pressure to make a difficult decision. Leave and be safe, or stay and risk everything for love? This letter was the tipping point. My family's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the reality of our precarious situation. Every fiber of my being screamed for self-preservation, but my heart couldn't bear the thought of leaving Alexander behind. The dilemma gnawed at me, day and night, a relentless torment. In the midst of this turmoil, Alexander and I found solace in our fleeting moments together. Each touch, each kiss, each whispered word was a promise, a defiance against the chaos surrounding us. The world could fall apart, but in those moments, we were untouchable, invincible. But the reality couldn't be ignored forever. The danger was real, and every passing day brought us closer to a breaking point. As much as I wanted to hold on to our dream of a future together, I knew that decisions had to be made, and soon. The question was, could I muster the courage to make the right one? So there we were, caught in the crossfire of love and war, each step more precarious than the last. Our fate hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of an uncertain future. And as the shadows grew longer, the only thing clear was that nothing would ever be the same again. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered to myself, reading the latest order plastered on the barracks wall. Alexander's commander had issued an ultimatum. All soldiers must account for their time and avoid any unauthorized absences. This new directive tightened the noose around us, making our already risky meetings even more perilous. It felt like the universe was conspiring to keep us apart. The pressure on Alexander was immense. Every moment we spent together now felt like borrowed time, ticking away with a relentless urgency. We had to be smarter, more cautious, but how much longer could we keep this up? Alexander's unit received orders for a highly dangerous mission to infiltrate an enemy stronghold. He insisted I stay away during this period to avoid drawing any suspicion. As if I wasn't already on edge, now I had to worry about him storming into the lion's den. The night before the mission, we shared an emotional goodbye. The fear of losing him was overwhelming, but I had to stay strong, for both of us. We promised to reunite once it was safe. His arms around me felt like a shield against the world, but as soon as he let go, the cold reality seeped back in. It was like a scene from a bad movie, but this was all too real. The next day, news of casualties from the mission spread quickly. My heart stopped every time someone walked through the door, hoping it would be him. Panic set in as I desperately searched for information about Alexander. The uncertainty was agonizing. Every whispered conversation, every hesitant glance from the soldiers, felt like a potential blow. I could only hope and pray for his safety, feeling utterly powerless. Then, finally, he returned, injured but alive. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly tempered by the loss of his comrades. The weight of their sacrifice hung heavy over us, deepening the sense of urgency to find a way out of this turmoil. How many more missions would it take before his luck ran out? Realizing the increasing danger, we began making plans to escape the war zone together. We discussed routes, safe houses, and trusted contacts who could help us. Every detail was meticulously planned to ensure our survival. We were like characters in a thriller novel, plotting our escape from an impossible situation. Except there were no guarantees of a happy ending. Just as our plans were coming together, disaster struck. One of Alexander's comrades, someone I had barely noticed before, betrayed us. He had discovered our secret and reported it to the commanding officer. The news sent shockwaves through the unit, putting our lives at immediate risk. The sense of betrayal cut deep. How had we been so careless? There was no time to dwell on it. We had to move, and fast. The urgency of the situation was like a slap in the face, jolting us into action. Every step, every breath, felt laden with danger. Our carefully laid plans had to be accelerated. There was no room for error now. As we scrambled to put our escape into action, the tension was palpable. Each moment stretched into an eternity, the fear of being caught lurking around every corner. We had no choice but to trust in our preparations and each other. This was our last chance, and we had to take it, no matter the cost. The sense of danger was a constant companion, whispering in my ear, reminding me of the stakes. But amidst the fear, there was also a flicker of hope. If we could just make it out, there was a chance for a future, one free from the shadows of war and betrayal. And that hope, however faint, was what kept us going. The sound of gunfire echoed through the night as we sprinted away from the base, leaving everything behind. With our cover blown, there was no time to think, only to run. Adrenaline surged through my veins, propelling me forward. Capture meant certain death, and I wasn't ready to give up on the future we had dreamt of, not yet. We plunged into the dense forest, its thick canopy providing some semblance of cover. Every twig that snapped underfoot and every rustle of leaves sounded like an alarm. We moved cautiously, our breaths shallow, trying to stay as silent as possible. The constant threat of being found kept us on edge, nerves stretched tight as a bowstring. After what felt like hours of creeping through the underbrush, we stumbled upon a group of sympathetic locals. Their faces were wary but kind, and they offered us shelter. They provided food, medical supplies, and crucial information about enemy movements. Their kindness was a lifeline, but we knew we couldn't linger. Our presence put them at risk too. To avoid recognition, we had to change our appearances. Alexander shaved his head and grew a scraggly beard, transforming his look completely. I dyed my hair a dark brown and altered my clothing. The changes were necessary but disorienting. Looking in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. We were becoming strangers to ourselves. With the help of our local contacts, we began the nerve-wracking process of obtaining forged documents. This was the key to our escape, but it was fraught with danger. One mistake, one slip up, and we would be exposed. The tension was palpable as we awaited the completion of the papers, every minute feeling like an hour. Finally, with new identities in hand, we made our way to a nearby town, posing as a married couple. This charade required constant vigilance. We rehearsed our story until it was second nature, played our roles diligently, and blended into the crowd. Each interaction was a test, and every slip of the tongue could betray us. Despite our precautions, disaster nearly struck at a checkpoint. A soldier's eyes lingered on Alexander a moment too long, recognition sparking in his gaze. Panic flared, but Alexander stayed calm, subtly shifting his stance to block the soldier's view of me. A tense moment passed, and then the soldier raised the alarm. We bolted, hearts pounding as we ran. We managed to escape, but the close call left us shaken, more determined than ever to reach safety. The town we had infiltrated was bustling, its streets filled with people going about their daily lives. We moved among them like ghosts, always watching, always wary. The weight of our new identities pressed down on us. We had to stay alert, had to remember who we were supposed to be now. It was exhausting, but there was no alternative. In our small rented room, the silence was heavy with unspoken fears. The walls felt like they were closing in, but there was no turning back. We were committed to this path, come what may. Every night, as I lay beside Alexander, I felt the enormity of what we were attempting. The future was uncertain, but we had each other, and for now, that had to be enough. Each day was a new challenge, a new test of our resolve. We had come so far, and yet the road ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. The danger was ever present, but so was our hope. It was a fragile thing, easily threatened but not easily extinguished. We clung to it, drawing strength from each other, determined to make it through this ordeal together. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as we fled through the forest, hearts pounding and breath ragged. The distant echoes of gunfire spurred us onward, every step a defiance against the doom that chased us. We had nothing but each other and the hope of a future free from this relentless war. We finally stumbled upon a dense thicket, the forest's canopy providing a much-needed refuge. The silence here was eerie, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. We moved cautiously, every sound amplifying our fear. It wasn't much, but it was safer than out in the open, and for now, that had to be enough. Our luck held when we encountered a group of sympathetic locals. Their wary kindness was our lifeline. They offered us shelter, food, and medical supplies, along with vital information about enemy movements. It felt like a godsend, but we couldn't overstay our welcome. Our presence put them at risk, and we needed to stay on the move. Changing our appearances was the next step. Alexander shaved his head and grew a beard, transforming his look entirely. I dyed my hair a dark brown and swapped out my usual attire for something more inconspicuous. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. We were becoming strangers, even to ourselves, but it was a necessary sacrifice for our survival. With our new identities came the need for forged documents. Our local contacts were skilled but nervous. One mistake could expose us all. The tension was suffocating as we awaited the completion of our papers, each minute feeling like an hour. The slightest misstep could unravel everything we had worked for. Finally, with new identities in hand, we set off for a nearby town, posing as a married couple. It was a role we had to play flawlessly. Every interaction was a test, every casual conversation a potential threat. We practiced our story until it became second nature, but the constant vigilance was exhausting. Despite our precautions, we faced a terrifying moment at a checkpoint. A soldier's eyes lingered on Alexander, recognition flickering in his gaze. Time seemed to slow as panic surged through me. Alexander's calm facade never wavered, but the tension was palpable. When the soldier raised the alarm, we bolted, adrenaline pushing us to our limits. We managed to escape, but the close call left us shaken and more determined than ever to reach safety. In the small village that became our temporary home, we began the slow process of building trust with the locals. Their acceptance was crucial for our survival. We worked hard to prove ourselves as valuable members of the community. Alexander found work with the local fishermen, while I assisted at a nearby school. These roles provided a sense of purpose and a tenuous connection to our new home. To blend in better, we immersed ourselves in learning the local language. It was challenging but essential. Our progress was slow, but each new word and phrase was a step closer to true integration and security. Establishing a daily routine brought a sense of normalcy to our lives. We woke early, worked hard, and enjoyed simple pleasures like evening walks along the beach. These moments were precious, a stark contrast to the chaos we had fled. One day, an unexpected visitor arrived, a man claiming to be an old friend of Alexander. His presence unsettled us, raising suspicions about his true intentions. We kept a close watch, wary of any threats to our safety. When he revealed himself to be an undercover agent working to expose enemy spies, our initial wariness gave way to cautious cooperation. His mission aligned with our goals, and we accepted his help, knowing it was a risk we had to take. Together, we uncovered a plot to attack the village. The confrontation was intense, our combined efforts a desperate gamble to save the community that had sheltered us. When the threat was finally neutralized, the village's gratitude was overwhelming. Our standing among the locals was solidified, and for the first time in a long while, we felt a flicker of true safety. With the immediate threat behind us, we resumed planning our departure. Gathering supplies, securing transportation, and preparing for the journey ahead became our focus. The anticipation of freedom was palpable, every step forward a step closer to the life we dreamed of. The villagers, in a gesture of profound kindness, held a farewell feast in our honor. The night was filled with music, laughter, and heartfelt goodbyes. Their acceptance had given us a second chance at life, and we were deeply grateful. At dawn, we set off for the coast, where a boat awaited to take us to a neighboring country. The journey was perilous, but the promise of freedom kept us moving forward. Crossing the border, the weight of the past began to lift. The new country offered hope and the chance to rebuild our lives. The relief was overwhelming, and we embraced the future with open hearts. In our new home, we started anew. Alexander found work as a carpenter, while I opened a small cafe. Our lives were simple but filled with peace and contentment. We built a small house on the outskirts of town, a place we could finally call home. The process was laborious but rewarding, each brick and plank symbolizing our resilience and determination. We made new friends in our community, people who welcomed us without question. Their acceptance helped us heal from the wounds of the past, allowing us to fully embrace our new lives. Our lives took on new meaning with the birth of our first child. This new addition to our family brought joy and hope, reinforcing our commitment to creating a better future. We became active members of our community, helping to build schools and support local businesses. Our contributions were appreciated, and we felt a deep sense of belonging. One day, an old comrade from Alexander's unit visited us, bringing news of the war's end. The visit was a reminder of our past, but also a testament to how far we had come. With the war over, we reached out to estranged family members, seeking reconciliation. These efforts were met with mixed reactions, but the process of rebuilding these relationships was an important step in our healing journey. We celebrated milestones, anniversaries, birthdays, and the achievements of our children. Each celebration was a reminder of the life we had built together, a life filled with love and resilience. Life was not without its challenges, but we faced them together. Financial difficulties, health issues, and the lingering trauma of the past tested our resolve, but our bond remained unbreakable. We found new purpose in helping others who had been displaced by the war. Our experiences gave us unique insights and empathy, and we worked tirelessly to support those in need. Our efforts did not go unnoticed. We received recognition from the local government and international organizations for our contributions to the community. This acknowledgement was a testament to our perseverance and commitment to making a difference. As we grew older, we focused on leaving a legacy for our children and community. We documented our story, hoping it would inspire others to find strength and hope in the face of adversity. In our later years, we enjoyed a peaceful life. The trauma of the past faded, replaced by the tranquility of our present. We spent our days surrounded by family and friends, content with the life we had built. Reflecting on our journey, we marveled at the twists and turns that had brought us to this point. The challenges we faced had forged an unbreakable bond, and we were grateful for every moment. As the years passed, we faced the inevitable end with grace and dignity. Our love had carried us through the darkest times, and we faced the future with the same courage and resilience that had defined our journey. After Alexander's passing, I continued our work, ensuring that his legacy of love and resilience lived on. The community we had helped to build thrived, a testament to our efforts and the strength of the human spirit. When my time came, I found peace in the knowledge that we had lived a life of meaning and purpose. Our story, filled with love and sacrifice, would be remembered by those we had touched, a legacy of hope for future generations.